Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a great day. And above all else, trying to looking after yourselves and one another. Before I get back into the topic of another wonderful episode that we're going to bring to you, I want to welcome back to the channel, Sagosh. How's it going, Sagosh?
Doing good, Armando. Thanks.
Thanks for being back. And the one and only Ken Cheshire. How's it going, Ken?
Going well, boss. Glad to be back.
He always calls me boss, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know why. It's just something we do,
Is
you
you the
know.
boss?
Okay, well, thank you so much. Me and Tony Danza. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the gang are back. We are doing album anniversaries today, and we have three albums that are celebrating their 60th anniversaries for the month of May 1966. Very interesting list here, from one end of the spectrum to the other. The first one up we have is Stevie Wonder with Uptight, released on April 5th, 1966 for Tamla Records. It is his fifth release, recorded between 1965 and 1966, with a massive playing time of 32 minutes and 52 seconds. Massive, massive. Perfect for LP, too short for CD, which is pretty much a story for all these albums that we're going to talk about today. The album was produced by Henry Cosby, Brian Holland, and Lamont Dozier. Now, I'll give my opinion at the very end. Who shall I pick on first? Ken, what is your view?
Thank you, Armando. Yeah, May 1966. Stevie Wonder um, had definitely made his mark by this time, but this is first generation Stevie.
Hmm.
This is Motown, and this is specifically good old 60s Motown. So this is a Stevie Wonder that not a lot of people today are aware of, other than the hits. Like, for instance, the title track on this album, "Uptight," everything's all right. It's a stone cold classic.
Hmm.
Um, but this is Stevie Wonder when he was he was basically formed in the same Motown mold that a lot of the early Motown artists are,
Yeah.
the Supremes and groups like that. So it definitely has that Motown formulaic feel and pattern to it. I don't mind that. Um, I love 60s Motown. There's times when I'll find a internet radio station that, just plays, oldies, 60s stuff like that. And this is par for that course. It's not for everybody. I enjoy it. Um, it's not the best thing in the world, but for me, this is kind of a mood vibe. When I'm just in that mood to just kind of chill.
Hmm.
The only song on here, they do a Motownized version of Dylan's "Blowing in the Wind."
Yeah, track three. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, um, they definitely made it Motown formula.
yeah,
They definitely did that, but
yeah.
it just, I guess, because I'm used to the original so much, it doesn't fit with me.
Yeah.
But the opening track, "Love a Go Go," I think is very catchy. It's great. Um, Again, the title track, "Uptight," "Ain't Asking for Trouble," I think is a lot of fun. It's got a great closer with "A Child's Heart." Um, so yeah, there's no real surprises here for what it is. Um, like I said, I enjoy it. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's in my mind, it's got its place. Like I said, I love 60s Motown, so that's what this is. So it's like, cool, I'm okay with this. So I think for people that are only familiar with Stevie Wonder's later works that are held in such high esteem, rightfully so.
Hmm.
Might want to give some, the early Stevie Wonder stuff a little bit of a more of a listen if they haven't. They might like it. So
Hmm.
that's my say. That's my 2 cents
Hmm.
or 4 bits or
For
whatever.
bits. That's good. No, that's all right. Thank you for that. Of course, you caught me as I took a sip of coffee. Thank you very much. Okay, thanks for that, Ken. You no good. Okay, all
Yeah, my
right.
timing was really good on that.
No, it's fine. It's
I've been
fine.
practicing. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. All right. So, Ghosh, what is your view on Uptight?
So this was my first listen of any Stevie Wonder album outside of the classic period, as it were.
Yeah,
Uh,
Hmm.
same here.
so
Same here.
me, although I was familiar with the title track, that's something I'd heard before. But talking about early Stevie Wonder is a little bit, you have to say, like talking about early Beatles,
Yeah,
because the stuff that comes later on is just of such stupendous quality that
Yeah.
it's hard to, however good the early stuff may be, it's hard to really do it justice because, whatever you say about them, they're not going to be anywhere near the classic period stuff. So it's a bit hard. At the same time, there is, I think, enough merit here on its own. Yes, not a lot of it is original work. Stevie gets co-writing credit on a few tracks, but you can't say that he's really formed any sort of, artistic stamp yet, which is fair enough. I mean, he was like, what, 16 when this came out?
yeah,
I think it's about shed the little Stevie tag at
yeah,
this point.
yeah,
Consider that. I think it's a pretty good album, and as a vocalist, he's already a powerhouse. I mean, his voice is fully mature. Like there's absolutely no signs of little Stevie over here. He's
yeah,
out
yeah,
there.
yeah. This ain't
It's
no
it's a
fingertips, that's for sure.
No, no.
Yeah, yeah,
think the one song that sort of sticks out like a sore thumb here is "Contract on Love," which definitely does not sound like it belongs on this album because it's clearly a much younger Stevie singing there,
yeah,
and it just comes across a bit jarring in context. It's a perfectly good song on its own, but it just feels a little strange in the context of the rest of the album.
yeah,
But yeah, the music here otherwise is very, very good. The performances are fantastic. Stevie's singing is top notch. His harmonica makes a few appearances. It's all great. The cover of "Blowing in the Wind," I can see where Ken's opinion comes from because while there's definitely a lot of creativity involved in the sense that they've completely transformed the song into a very Motown feel, but in the process I suppose it does lose a bit of the bite of the original. It sounds much more bright and happy than the kind of bitter questioning that the original in its stark acoustic setting brings about. So yeah, I mean it's possible to sort of sing along with this and not really get the gist of what's being said. So in that sense, I suppose you could say it's a bit diluted. But purely, from a musical perspective, in terms of rearranging something that's already been done, I thought it's pretty creative. Uh,
okay,
Yeah, I mean, I just say it's a good enough album on its own. Stevie would, of course, go on to do much, much greater things. In context of that, it's probably not something you would want to showcase. But if you're somebody, as Ken said, who's familiar with the later stuff and wants to know more about where it came from, I think this is a pretty good place.
okay. All right. Thank you, Sakosh. Yeah, this was the first time I listened to this album, and yeah, out of all of the artists that were on Motown from the 60s into the 70s, he exploded. Like there was such a maturity that he showed in his songwriting ability and arranging and performing with albums like Inner Visions and Talking Book, and then Songs in the Key of Life. This album to me, I mean, it's not bad. I mean, Love a Go Go is okay. Hold Me is all right. Everyone knows Uptight. Everything is all right. This was the first time I actually heard the original, like the very
Okay.
first time. I've always heard Uptight as part of medleys that were like Motown medleys that were done. Specifically, there was a studio group called Shalimar
Yeah.
in the 70s, and
Yeah.
they did on their first album, they did a Motown medley called Uptown Festival. And this was part of that. It was a disco medley recorded at Bollock Sound and Ike Turner Studio. But I mean, I grew up with three sisters, so disco was always in the house at some point, right?
Yeah.
But getting back to this, it's okay.
Mhm.
It's all right. It's decent. I think had they put Contract on Love at the beginning of the album, the maturity of the voice could be heard in
Okay.
context. Do you know what I mean? Whereas
So,
when you hear Contract on Love near the end, the second to final song, it's like, okay, what the hell is this? Like, I thought, okay, who do you get his nephew in to sing on this or what? Like, what is this? You know, I mean, let's, oh, it's a little TV wonder, as Gladys Knight would call him, little TV, right?
Yeah.
Instead of little Stevie,
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
TV
Yeah.
wonder. You know? But yeah, it's a good album. It's Motown. I mean, none of the songs are over 3.5 minutes. If they
Mhm.
went beyond 3.5 minutes, the censors would go ballistic on them, right? It's very formulaic, very much obey as I say kind of a thing, right? But it's good. It's good. You can hear
Yeah.
the maturity in his voice. This is not
Yeah.
Fingertips Part 2 that we're listening
Yeah.
to, but it is what it is for the time, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, Love Will Go Go would be a good strong single, a second single for the album for me.
Mhm.
But again, that's just my opinion. We must carry on, ladies and gentlemen. Our next album is from this Small Faces, self-titled. It is their second release. Re sorry, recorded June in 1965 to February 1966 for Decca Records. Sorry, released on May 6th, 1966, with a recording time of 32 minutes and 47 seconds. Massive. Produced by, Small Faces and Jan Samuel or Jan Samuel. Uh, Ken, you?
Engineered by Lynn Johns.
That's right,
I mean,
Glenn
Glenn
Johns. That's
Glenn
right.
Johns. Yeah.
That's right.
I really do like this album. This is a good picture of what was going on in England at this time. Um, this album is very similar to what the Who were doing.
Yeah,
There's a lot of similar. I just hear a lot of similarities between this and the Who's My Generation album.
yeah,
Um, both Steve Marriott and Roger Daltrey were doing a lot of the same things
yeah. The
vocally.
blues, the
Yeah, except
blues
Marriott's
vocals.
voice is higher, so he could pull off a little bit more. But Daltrey was doing the growling on these R&B songs too. Um, uh, I thought it was interesting. I didn't know Glenn Johns engineered this, but it surely makes sense with what was going on. Um, uh, uh, the To me, there's no real standout on this album. For me, this is just a solid album as it is. But there again, I'm a big fan of 60s rock. So so to me, this is like a first cousin to the Who's My Generation album. Uh, Marriott was also doing a lot of the same things on guitar that Townsend was doing. There's just I hear just a lot of similarity to both the guitar sounds and the lead vocals on both of these albums.
Do
the
you
new
mean,
and the
yeah?
small faces.
Do you mean like
Um,
open air tuning? What's that called? Like with the guitar, like
yeah, open tuning, yeah.
open tuning. Sorry.
The but just also the style of the strumming, the guitar tones that Marriott and Townsend used.
Yeah.
It's in a way it's kind of formulaic in that this is young British kids um, doing their own thing on American rhythm and blues. And so this is what, and there were, lots of other bands doing the same thing. It's almost has a somewhat of a garage sound, garage
Yeah.
band sound to it.
Yeah.
And for all you young viewers here, I'm not talking about the game, the video game garage band. I'm talking back in the days when, you know, kids would start a band and they'd rehearse in their parents' garage. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Man, and it's a rough sound. It's a very raw sound. Um, but Yeah, this is just a good solid album for me. Um, I wasn't really, I'm fairly new to Marriott period of faces, small faces. I first discovered them through, um, the other guy that would come along after him, Rod Stewart. But I've over the last couple of decades, I've come to really appreciate and really like the small faces stuff. Um, it's a fun album for me. For some reason, I kind of am really drawn to that 60s British R&B sound. Because as people that have watched uh, more than two videos on our channel here, I'm a
Hmm.
huge Who fan. So, so there you have it. Small Faces, hard recommendation for the band itself. And like I say, for me, this is a fun album. I could see this playing in the background of a party for sure. For me,
Hmm. Hmm.
no disco,
Okay.
just
Okay.
just little
That's a
Small Faces.
that's a
Yeah.
hard no on the disco. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ken. Okay, Sagosh, your view on the small faces?
I do agree with Ken on one point that this is very, very similar to the My Generation LP. Uh, you could almost draw parallels track by track. Uh, I think at some level, the Small Faces album is just maybe slightly more rough around the edges,
Mhm.
in the sense that there's a lot more raw rootsy R&B kind of feel to it, whereas the Who did have several more catchy pop singles on that LP. It was more of a mix of the pop singles and the rootsy stuff. But I think Small Faces are a little bit harder edged. That said, as an album, this did not really grab me that much. I mean, they have the chops, they're excellent musicians,
Yeah.
and they've got the vibe down pat. It's got that, like Ken said, that raw garage band kind of sound, which was very popular in Britain around this time.
Hmm.
There's R&B tracks and that gritty kind of sound. Steve Marriott is a great vocalist, of course, but I don't think, as competent as the musicians are on this record, I don't think there is anybody here that comes anywhere near the vicinity of Townsend, Entwistle, and Moon. So they neither have the ability as musicians, according to me. Although they're perfectly fine musicians, but nothing here stands out like like the way My Generation album just hits you between the eyes. I didn't find anything so outstanding here,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
the one song that kind of sticks out for me is "It's Too Late" because that bears a quite striking resemblance to a song on My Generation, "The Good's Gone."
Yeah.
Very, very similar feel, similar kind of droning, pounding rhythm. It's the one song that I can remember after I get through the LP. The rest of them just sort of fade in and out. They're all right, but nothing truly memorable. I feel like they don't like have the songwriting chops of the Who. They're good enough musicians.
Yeah.
Steve Marriott is a good singer, but they, they don't have it in them to write a My Generation or a Kids Are All Right, or any of those songs. There's just, the Who were great musicians, but Townsend was also a great, he had a great gift of songcraft, which,
Yeah.
to me at least, seems a bit lacking here. This is, average R&B kind of stuff. It's okay, but there's no real songcraft on display here. One thing that, surprised me a little bit, of course, I haven't heard, the original blues track that it's supposed to be inspired from. But it was really surprising to me that You Need Loving is not more often called out as a very, very direct template for Whole Lotta Love. I mean, it is so
That's
Yes.
obvious.
Yes. Yes.
exactly it.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I'm sure, the original, was it Willie Dixon? I don't remember
Willie
which.
Dixon. Willie
Willie Dixon.
Dixon did the original. Yeah, yeah. You beat me to it. I was going to mention that. Yeah, yeah,
But this version is so strikingly similar to what Zeppelin would do a couple of years later that it's very surprising that it's not held up
Mhm.
more often as a very obvious example of plagiarism. Even if they themselves took the idea from bluesmen, this version is clearly the template for
Yeah.
Zeppelin did, and
Yeah,
it just maybe adds an extra level to the plagiarism accusations they're always pounded
yeah,
with.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hits you
But yeah, that
upside the
was a
face. Yeah.
I was aware that there was a version like this which was so close to what Zeppelin did. I think essentially this is whole lot of love minus that riff.
Yeah.
Everything else, all of Plant's vocal mannerisms, you can definitely hear them over here.
yeah, yeah.
And that was a bit of a revelation for me. Otherwise, it's an okay album. Like like Ken, if you're a person who's into this particular scene, you'll probably enjoy it, and it's perfectly decent to listen to on its own, but not what I would call an album that really recommends itself to people outside that generation or people not
Mhm.
really into that specific mood. It's okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Well, thanks, Sagosh. My opinion. Ooh. I like Steve Marriott's vocals. I do. He has a very guttural
Hmm.
approach to his vocal delivery, very soulful.
Yeah.
And he would go on to form Humble Pie, with Peter Frampton. But this album, meh, there's nothing, there's really nothing here that really stands out. It starts off with the Sam Cooke cover of, Shake. Yeah, and, the Willie Dixon cover of You Need Loving, which when I heard it, it's like, okay, all right. So why were Zeppelin nailed for copyright infringement and not, Small Faces? Because this is a much more direct copy from the original than Led Zeppelin was. And a little footnote, subsequent pressings of Zeppelin 2 from 88 on had to list Willie Dixon as a co-write on Whole Lotta Love. So just a little footnote there.
Yeah.
But I'm not one to gossip, so you didn't
To
hear that
point
from me.
out that having heard the song, I went and checked the songwriting credits on the LP, and it's credited only to Marriott and Ronnie Lane. So yeah, you're right. I mean, they should have been pulled up as well.
Yeah, you know.
Well, they get
Um,
probably got more money out of Zeppelin than they would have Faces. So,
yeah, and true enough.
but still, yeah.
Yeah, it's
There was a lot of
generic.
that going on at the time. So,
Yeah, there was. But for me, this album is generic, I guess. It's
Mhm.
good, but it's garage rock is a good way to describe it,
Yeah.
Ken. It's not the Seeds. Okay, let's
Mhm.
not go there. It's not the Seeds. Nothing is like the Seeds. Okay, thank God for that. But I could
It's of
see
its
this.
time.
It's
Yeah.
of its time. I could see this coming and going and not really
Yeah.
making much of a dent or much of an impression. Although Steve Marriott as a vocalist, very soulful,
Mhm.
very guttural. I do get the Roger Daltrey reference there, the
Mhm.
comparison. I just it's not an album I would listen to again. You know. There is the one instrumental, Own Up Time, which is
Yeah.
okay, you know, but at a minute and 47 seconds. And that's just it. Only the most of these songs are within the 2 minute plus range. They're not very long, very short and to the point and in your face and, you know, come in, do it, and leave kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But it's all right. It's all right. I mean, so we must carry on, ladies and gentlemen. Our last album on our listing here to talk about the Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, released on May 16th, 1966. This is the Beach Boys' 11th release. Recorded from July 12th of 1965 to April 17th, 1966. Produced by Brian Wilson for Capitol Records with a massive playing time. Massive. Of 35 minutes and 57 seconds. Okay? Again, perfect for LP, too short for CD. Oh my God. 13 tracks in total. Ken, your view.
Pet Sounds. It's a legendary album. Um, it was a very influential album at the time. I won't go into, the background story of it. That's well documented.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't take much, Googling to find out what it is.
Hmm.
I find I think it's quite a divisive album amongst music fans in general. It seems like there are two factions. One faction, I think it's the greatest um, pop album of all time. And then I see the another faction that's completely at the opposite end of the spectrum, that's saying, what the hell? This is massively overrated, blah, 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 blah. And I don't hear or read very much of people that are kind of in the middle.
Hmm.
Um,
I get that.
I think I think it's a fantastic album. Is it the greatest pop album of all time? I don't know. To me, even from within my own mind, it's somewhat subjective because my brain separates different styles and genres. So to me, it's like, okay, which is greater, the Archie's debut album or Black Sabbath's debut album? This is
My
it's
God.
apples and oranges. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? Now
Okay.
that now that that vision is in people's minds, um,
Sorry. That's more like apples to hand grenades. I mean,
yeah, literally. The uh,
sorry.
honestly, the first time I listened to this album as a whole, it didn't do a whole lot for me. No pun intended. But I tell you what, um, this has got two songs on here that even people that don't aren't Beach Boys fans are going to recognize. Obviously, the opening track, "Wouldn't It Be Nice,"
Hmm.
and the other track, "God Only Knows," which I think it was McCartney that said that was the greatest song ever written, or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think I've read many artists have said that. I think it's fantastic, but I think the story behind this album is fascinating, and in some ways a little bit sad. It did not succeed um, when it first debuted.
Yeah,
So this
Capitol
is one of those
Records.
albums that is just grown as time
Yeah,
has gone by.
yeah, Capitol Records didn't see a hit on the
Yeah,
album, and they didn't want to release
yeah.
it right away.
And I think after this, he wanted to do Smile,
Hmm.
and that got scrapped, which was supposed to be even better than this album was. But this out, but after repeated listenings, I really do see the depths of the songs on this album, with one exception. I'll agree with a lot of my friends. Sloop John B. Just takes the Mickey out of it. Um, to me, it doesn't belong on here. Of course, it's a popular. It's probably a third um, one of Beach Boys' big songs, but to me it doesn't fit on here. But that's okay.
Hmm.
Um, Part of the strength of this album is the Wrecking Crew, the musicians on this album,
Featuring Glenn Campbell.
featuring Glenn Campbell and that wonderful staccato bass playing of Carol Kay. Carol Kay doesn't get enough recognition in my eyes in her contribution
No,
to
she doesn't, and she
early
needs
rock
more. She needs
and
more
within
contribution.
the Wrecking Crew especially. I was listening to this again yesterday. I never thought of it. There's a lot of timpani on this album, which you don't hear, very often in rock and roll. If you do, it's only maybe one song off an album, but but this album has a very wide breadth of sound and soundscapes. Between the Wrecking Crew and bringing in strings, um, uh, other orchestral instruments. It's definitely um, it's a vision that that Wilson um, really did everything he could to see it happen, to create what was going on inside of his head. Um, I have heard that he was very difficult to work with on these sessions because he was very incredibly specific in what he wanted. Um, so kudos for him as a producer and an
Yeah.
arranger for being
Hmm.
able to communicate that to the musicians and everything. Um, yeah, I've lived with this album for so long now that to me this is just a single entity of itself. Um, this has got also to me one of the greatest album closers of all time with Caroline No. Um, the only bone I have to pick with it, I wish they'd left the train and the dog barking off of the end of the song because it it spoiled the mood of the end of this album.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it would have been just totally perfect with the mood and would have closed this album off greatly. But whatever, that's fine. Um, yeah, is it the best pop album of all time? For some, maybe. Um, Not for me, but it is my favorite Beach Boys album, and it would definitely be in my top ranking of all time. I'm not sure where, but yeah, I think it deserves the accolades it gets.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Sagosh, your view?
So I've had a pretty complicated relationship with this album. Uh, I started out being like, completely incredulous about it. The first time I heard about Pet Sounds and about the Beach Boys in general being spoken, I was, of course, at this point, a huge, huge Beatles fan. And when I came across the Beach Boys mentioned in context of the Beatles and an album that supposedly matched up to what the Beatles were doing at the time, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. There's no way. Boys can match Beatles. I mean, I spent a long time, coming from that perspective, and well, honestly, did not give the album a fair chance for quite a long time. And then, it just kept appearing. There was a period, I think, in the 2000s where every week some magazine or other were publishing a greatest albums of all time list. And Pet Sounds was, if it wasn't one, it was two. So that gave me some impetus to say, okay, let's go back and listen to it again. And over a period of time, I have given it multiple listens here and there, and I have come to a much kinder evaluation of Beach Boys of this period, and Brian Wilson's genius as a songwriter and an arranger. Uh, I mean, I can see where the accolades come from. There is definitely some top-notch songwriting here. The structures of the songs are not like what pop music was in 1966. There is a lot of innovation happening here in terms of how the songs flow, in terms of how the songs are arranged, in terms of the intricate sort of harmonies and orchestral arrangements. There is a lot to be said for this album in terms of uh, experimentation, in terms of trying new things and playing around with the format of the pop record per se. So I'm willing to acknowledge those things. The songs themselves, yes, many of them are absolutely superb examples of Brian Wilson's songwriting. Wouldn't it be nice? Maybe it may sound a little silly, but it's one of those songs that you can't resist smiling at.
Mhm.
It's just there. I mean, it's just pure unbridled joy. So you can't really resist it. God only knows. Again, you can't fault McCartney for what he said. It's beautifully structured song, beautifully written, beautifully expressed. I mean, the emotions that it expresses are very lovingly done, and yeah, it's got a rank as one of the great love songs of all time. There are other great songs as well. Caroline No, as Ken mentioned, there is also You Still Believe in Me. I know there's an answer. There are several songs that when you take them out of context of the album and you listen to them as songs, there is no way you can deny them. They're beautiful songs. But for me, at least personally, it's always been a case of when I sit down and listen to the whole album, it gets a little overwhelming. There is, a lot of, uh, well, I don't know what the word is exactly, but there's too much of the same mood, the same
Yeah, I
tempo.
get it. I get it.
And it's slow. It's almost draggy. You know, you feel like Brian Wilson is almost pulling himself down to sing these at the tempo that he's singing them. You get
Yeah.
this sense of record winding down or something like that. It's not a criticism. I mean that tempo probably works for the kind of emotional expression he was going for. So I mean I don't mean it necessarily as to say that slow is bad, but somehow when you listen to all of these songs, they start blending into each other a little bit. And the orchestral choices to me, in some places, are a little jarring. There are particular points where the orchestra suddenly does some very, corny, carnivalish kind of things. It sort of spoils the mood. It takes something very beautiful and emotional and turns it into a bit of a joke. Uh,
Okay.
so there are those kind of moments that spoil it a little bit for me. Uh, which is why I would say that is it a good album? Yes, it's a very good album. But I would hesitate to put it at, greatest of all time because I find it flawed in some ways. I mean, the greatest of all time, I feel, should have a much, you know, a greater appeal and a little bit more variety, maybe. It's all a bit samey.
Yeah.
I mean, Slow and B gets criticized for spoiling the mood, but it's also the one song that kind of wakes you up a little bit.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, props to Brian Wilson. I mean, one thing you have to say, you have to definitely acknowledge in the whole Beatles versus Beach Boys debate is that the Beatles at the end of the day were five guys. I mean, there were four of them with their own creative input. And then there was George Martin. All of them pitching in, all of them coming up with ideas, all of them, helping with the execution. And you put that against Brian Wilson alone, like writing, arranging, singing, orchestrating, producing. He's translating his own vision, and everybody else is just being directed.
Yeah.
So that's a very different band dynamic,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, definitely.
you can't fairly compare the two because this guy is really doing it all on his own. So there is no fair comparison between the two. And I do feel that Brian Wilson, his songwriting approach, his musical vision comes from a somewhat different space compared to the Beatles. Uh, and I don't think there is any fair way to really pit one against the other. But I would say that maybe if Brian had found a producer or more musicians on his wavelengths where they could actively contribute, and maybe he could also sort of let himself go to the point of bringing them in and allowing them to add their own inputs into the mix. Maybe we would have seen a lot more from him. Maybe Smile wouldn't have been shelved. uh, Maybe Beach Boys wouldn't have been a sort of you know abandoned at their highest point kind of story, which is what it feels like with Pet Sounds, really, because that was the point where they were really starting to get away from their surf rock sound and do something innovative and something unprecedented, and then all of a sudden Brian has this breakdown, and then
Yeah.
the next thing you hear from them is, well, it's not quite the same.
Mhm.
They lost their way at the time when they really should have exploded. So you do feel a bit for the guy. I mean, he took on a lot. It's a huge burden to carry, trying to, put such grand visions onto record without any, real assistance. So yeah, you got to feel for him for that. But I still can't, bring myself to acknowledge this as the greatest albums of all time. There are many albums alongside which it would rank as a very good album, as it definitely should be in the top 100 or the top 200 or whatever, those kind of lists. But whether it should be at number one, I don't know.
I get it. I get it. Thank you for that, Sagosh. My view of this album, this is the first time I actually listened to this album all the way through.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. And I'm gonna get blasted for this, son of a bitch. I'm telling you right now what I'm talking. But yeah, a lot has been touted as, you know, people have said, that this album, is one of the best, if not the best album of the 1960s or overall. And there is the story of when this album came out, Capitol in North America didn't want to release it. Instead, originally they released a greatest hits album first. This album took off in England, in the UK, thanks to Derek Taylor, the press manager, who was also, handled press for the Beatles. Now, there's a story of Brian Johnston who went to the UK, went to England to do a tour, a press tour for this album. He gets back to the hotel that he's staying at, and the front desk tells him Lennon and McCartney are waiting in your room. So he goes up to the room, and Paul McCartney and John Lennon are waiting there, and they want to hear Pet Sounds. So he puts it on, they listen to it. They think it's the best thing since sliced bread. They think it's
Yeah.
over the top. They think it's one of the best thing that they've ever heard musically. A year later comes out Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah.
And then after that comes out In Her Majesty's Satanic Service. from the Rolling Stones. There's a lineage going on here.
Yep.
Okay. I listened to this album and I'm thinking, huh? This is the best album that the Beach Boys ever made or that's ever been made in terms of. I'm not saying that there isn't a leap in terms of musicality and arrangements and all of that. I'm not saying that because there is a leap. There is an actual gain in terms of what they're doing musically. I'm like you said, Ken, people that, don't understand the appeal of it. I don't understand the mass appeal of it. I really don't. I mean, wouldn't it be nice? And God only knows, as pop songs, wonderful, wonderful. Sergeant Pepper comes out a year later, and that is leaps and bounds over what is going on Pet Sounds. I do find that with Pet Sounds, and I'm going to get blasted for this, but I do find with Pet Sounds, there's a lot of what I call mashup of the instrumentation between the left and the right channel and on the spectrum of stereo here. I don't find there's a lot of separation of instruments on the album. And there's something that's missing here for me, and I don't know what it is. I'm trying to like it. I'm trying to get into it. But there's also for me that mental block. And I said this to Bob last night. There's the mental block of the Charles Manson connection with the band. I can't get past that. Even though it happened 3 years later, I can't get past that. The Manson murders and all that kind of stuff, Terry Melcher I can't get past that connection. It's a haunting connection for me that somebody lost their lives. A group of people lost their lives because of the connection with the a tenuous connection with the Beach Boys. I can't get past that. But back to the album. It isn't, for me, it's an album of its time. I do feel that there's a growth on here. I do feel that maybe, like with what Sagosh said, that if Brian Wilson had let the other Beach Boys members of the band come in and maybe contribute a little more at this point, maybe it would have been a bit of a different album, maybe a better album. I don't know. There's just something about this album that it stalls for me, you know. Now, ladies and gentlemen, start your hate in the comments down below. You can send your, messages. I just, like there's just like there is a definite difference between Pet Sounds and Sergeant Pepper. Okay. The only similarity is that both albums have 13 songs
And a hole in the middle. Yeah.
and a hole in the middle. But I mean, if you listen to Sergeant Pepper, for example, you've got wonderful separation of the instruments. Okay. The use of sitar and tabla on Within You Without You, on side two, track one. Wonderful. Wonderful. It's like, what am I hearing here? This is like, and even the harmonies, it's like, after a while, Brian Wilson's harmonies, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's like, I'm like, oh my God. No, I just can't do it. I can't do it. I can't listen to it. I just can't do it. I can't. I just can't. I'm sorry. It's like, all right. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but it's not for me. This is album is not for me. It's oh, and I hate to say it because it's such to some people it's considered such a seminal album, such a turning point.
It's
But
definitely not Black Midi for sure.
no, 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 no. Nothing is like Black Midi. Okay,
Look,
nothing.
when it comes right down to it, um, uh, even even for me, which I was 7 years old at the time, it was still going to be at least a couple of decades before I was familiar with this album.
Yeah,
But unless one was, I'd say, at least a teenager, um, these three albums I don't think can be experienced in the same way as we do now,
yeah,
because at that point, their experience was only up to that point.
yeah,
Our experience is looking backwards
yeah.
and everything we've heard since.
And, and
Um,
and let me put it this way: I can understand, and then I'll shut up. But I can understand a 13-year-old listening to this at the time and thinking, "My God, this is like the best thing I've ever heard. It's so different. It's so interesting." But and in the same way that when I brought my copy home of Abbey Road on vinyl, and my brother-in-law said to me, "Are you sure that you can handle this? Because this is quite different for you."
sure.
I was 10 years old at the time, 10, 11 years old. And I was like, Mario, I can handle this. This is good. So okay, let's sit and listen to it because I don't know if you can, but we'll sit and listen to it. So it's a matter of degrees in terms of
Sure.
that, right? But I mean, it has its place and it is considered by some Sir Paul McCartney, all due respect, has a new album coming out, by the way. All due respect to you, I don't see it. With the exception of wouldn't it be nice and God only knows, I don't see it.
That's
Uh,
cool.
do you have any more
And
to add, Oceans?
honestly, this is the only Beach Boys album I've ever bought. I am not a surf rock fan. I appreciate it for what it is, but a little bit goes a long way. And that might be why um, one of the reasons why I do like this album, because it breaks that mold. You know, um,
They
it's
wanted to
not
break
just all those you know upbeat surfing safari and stuff like that gets old fast for me.
if
But
if
but yeah,
if the one thing that the beach watching the documentary last night, ladies and gentlemen, there's a wonderful documentary on Disney Plus on the Beach Boys, and if you haven't watched it yet, please check it out. But if there's one thing that the Beach Boys were, I guess, quote unquote, guilty of, was unsuccessfully being able to leave the surfer tag behind
yeah,
in terms of the changing musical times. I mean, they were scheduled to play up at the Monterey Pop Festival, and they had to cancel. They had to back out for whatever reason. You're on the same bill, just a little sidebar, ladies and gentlemen, a little mini rant. You're on the same musical bill with The Who, Jimi Hendrix, Otis Redding, Janis Joplin, and you back out? Jefferson Airplane, Grateful Dead, again, and you back out? Wait a minute. That was a missed opportunity right there. And I don't mean to get fiery here, but there you go. It's like.
yeah.
But anyways, okay. All right. Sakosh, I'm sorry. Do you have any more comments
Yeah, I
or
have to make actually one thing that you said regarding the stereo mixes. I think it's probably fair to say that a lot of stereo mixes from the 60s have had their share of flaws. And to be perfectly fair to both the Beatles and the Beach Boys, I think there's been enough on record to show that both of them were primarily interested, only in the mono mixes. Like they
Mhm.
used to sit in for the mono mixes. Brian Wilson has famously known to support only mono. He's not really interested in. He's never been really interested in stereo mixes. And the Beatles, up until the point of Sergeant Pepper, at least, were set to have Saturn only on the mono mixing sessions. They did not really bother about stereo mixing. It was left to random engineers at Abbey Road or whatever it may be.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
whether the band carries the blame, or whatever the liability for those stereo mixes, good, bad,
Yeah.
ugly, is questionable.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people still say for the '60s albums, the mono is the way to hear them.
Hmm.
So
yeah,
just
and
purely on on the mix perspective, it may not be fair to call Brian or the Beach Boys out. Uh, but yeah, I will agree with you that the sound of it is very much of its time. Like if I listen to a comparable Beatles album, if I listen to a Revolver or Sergeant Pepper, there is a freshness to it still there, and this is true of almost all the artists of that period, especially
yeah,
if you talk about more of the psychedelic rock kind of bands. There is a very clear sonic imprint to them that places them very firmly in the mid to late '60s.
Yeah.
You can't deny that sound, which is not true of the Beatles, but then it's also almost only the Beatles that it's not true of. Practically everybody else has got that sonic imprint. So it's it's a negative point and it's not a negative point, because if you're going to say that Pet sounds of its time, so does practically every album that is still regarded
yeah,
as a classic.
yeah,
So, but
Mhm.
yeah, to me, something that is number one of all time should be able to spring out of its era and say, I am relevant across the ages. And that is something that I personally felt Pet Sounds does not have as an overall, as songs, as compositions, as arrangements, as production. There are elements of a classic album in there, but it doesn't come together as a classic album. This
Yeah.
is my feeling about Pet Sounds. Having said that, uh, over a period of time, I have slowly, started getting into, the kind of vision that Brian Wilson has and the kind of, sonic landscapes he envisions. And I think, although I think he didn't quite achieve what he was looking to achieve on Pet Sounds. So he tried to go one better with Smile, which sadly never saw the light of day.
until
At least not
recently, until
where he
recently.
was still with all his youthful energy and able to devote his attention to it. But having said that, there are a couple of records that I would still recommend for anybody who feels this way about Pet Sounds, that it's a little overrated or they don't get it. So one of them is the Beach Boys' 1971 release "Surf's Up,"
Yes.
which carries on from some of the ideas he came up with for Smile. In fact, I
Mhm.
think from Pet Sounds forward, practically every album the Beach Boys put out ended up including some small snippet of what he had thought of including on Smile, but never
Mhm.
got there. Get these little snippets of his vision across most of the Beach Boys albums from that point forward. I think Surf's Up is where it sort of coalesces better, and that album comes across as maybe a little closer to the vision he had in his head. The sound is better. It's not so steeped in the '60s as Pet Sounds is. The orchestration is richer. The harmonies, the melodies are much more intricate and interesting. Sadly, I don't know why they went with the title "Surfs Up," because that, to me, having that title devalues the album, because you hear that title and you think, oh, I'm going to get
It
12 in USA's or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it links it back to the surfer rock tag.
if you're approaching it from that angle, I would say that that particular album is not surf rock. It's very interesting. It's very intricate,
Yeah,
and it's worth a listen. And also, I would strongly recommend the 35 years down, 30 years down the line, he finally somehow managed to get his act together, get a band together that works, that understands him, and is able to sort of map to his creative ideas. And he came up with what is now considered the definitive version of Smile. This is a 2004 release. which as close as you'll get to what he originally had
Yeah.
in mind. The
Yeah.
album really was
Okay.
strongly recommended. So these two albums, even if you're a sort of Beach Boy skeptic, which I am also, or I was for a long time, these two albums are worth listening to.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Uh, in closing, I just, you know, um, in hearing that, Pet Sounds was the inspiration for Sergeant Pepper, in my, you know, very humble opinion,
Hmm.
the Beatles took what the Beach Boys did on Pet Sounds and they just amplified it by 100% and just ran with it, you know. Um, and, because, yeah, to me, there's no comparison between the two albums. I mean, and if you were to try to compare them, but again, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, start your hate comments now. In terms of
Oh
my
yeah.
opinion of Pet Sounds, Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Another episode of Album Anniversaries. Celebrating albums that are celebrating the 60th anniversary of the month of May 1966. I want to thank Sagosh for his input and Ken Jashar for joining in on this. It's been wonderful. It's been wonderful.
I love it.
And there is only coffee in the cup, I promise. Ladies and gentlemen, we have other shows that we're going to put together that we're going to bring to you as soon as we possibly can. Bill Schuster is coming back on the channel, and we are going to be doing a series of episodes, I do believe, called Outlaws and Heroes, where we're going to be covering country rock. And Bill is going to be helming those episodes because country rock is not my forte. Ken's joining us on that episode. We are going to be doing our top 10 tracks of the 1960s, which is another idea of Bill's. Yeah, and I agreed to do it. And Sagosh is joining us on that episode. I do believe Ken is coming along for that ride as well. We
Whether
are
you like it or not, I'm going to be there.
we are working on details for that. Bill's been busy over the past few weeks, but we are coming back with that, I promise. And yeah, we are going to get more episodes put together. We're also working on a split ends album ranking. Okay, Ken and I are doing that. So that's coming up. And we have more shows that we're going to put together and get to you as soon as we possibly can. So please stay tuned for that. Please click like and subscribe and do hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content we got coming up. We are now on X, so please follow us on X. And yeah, it's been wonderful doing these episodes. 3 years have gone by very quickly. All right. For some people. Let's put it that way. And again, please look after yourselves and one another. I'm Armando signing off. Have a great day. Bye for now.